This is the focus of my talk. It's on artificial intelligence and ambient intelligence. And my thesis is, with affordable sensors and wearables, innovations that we wouldn't have been able to think of a few years ago are now going to be practical and cost effective for us and for our parents. Things aren't going to cost like a ton of money like we thought they were going to cost. Oh, Chris, got you on my slide, man. What this says is the richest person in the world has the same iPhone that you have today. Technology has democratized luxury, all right? And what I think is going on, like the richest guy in the world has the same iPhone as you do. And technology is also now democratizing Eldercare. Here's the points I'm going to run through in 32 minutes, 6 seconds. Watch me get us back on time. It's going to happen. Shortage of traditional family caregivers. Low-cost ambient intelligence tech is coming along, which are sensors. And what this all is leading to is more self-reliant elder care. Now, where that's going to be, could be in a hospital, it could be in an assisted living center, could be in a lot of places, but people are just going to be more self-reliant. Last time I led with 2001: A Space Odyssey, because I'm sort of obsessed with it, but the original artificial intelligence and ambient intelligence model was Hal from that movie, because Hal watched everything people did, he ran the ship, and he reacted to their needs, all right? And that's where I'm sort of going with this. But first, I have to talk to you about how ambient intelligence is sort of a black swan event. Y'all have heard of black swan events? I hope you haven't read the book. Whoa, reading the book is a slog. But his thesis is this going to be on the internet? Hey, Nassim Taleb, your book's a slog. But anyway, the thesis is that big things come along in history that you don't expect, and they change things really fast. That's a black swan event. Netflix Black Swan 2 just absolutely killed them. National Geographic ran a magazine title that said, "The End of Cheap Oil." And right here what we have, let me grab my other remote real quick, is these are like the experts a couple of years ago saying oil, well, its top is going to be 125, and there's no way oil is ever going to go below. Their confidence estimates said oil is never going below about 75, and we all saw what happened to crude oil prices in basically no time at all. Everybody said it couldn't happen. The best economists that the Saudis had, that the Russians had, that we had, said it couldn't happen, but guess what? It didn't happen until it did. And people said fracking couldn't happen until it did. Things come along and change things in a huge way. Uber has changed things in a big way. How many of y'all have taken an Uber? Cool, good Lord. Uber's changed things, except in France where they're a little bit mad about it and they flip over Uber cars, because you know how they do. But what's interesting is, you know, Apple put $1 billion into the Chinese Uber the other day. It's called Didi Chuxing, their ride-sharing service. And here's my theory behind why they did that. Why would Apple put $1 billion into Chinese Uber? It's because we all know Apple's building a car. I have a theory that car is going to be sold exclusively in China, which is Apple's biggest market now anyway. All right? I don't think they're building it for here at all. There's been more concrete and asphalt put down in the last 10 years in China than there was in the entire 20th century in America. All right? They're getting mobile, but they're going to be mobile in vehicles that we are not used to. All right? Crazy cool vehicles like Tesla. Here's a black swan, 0 interest rates, and the reason I wanted to throw this in here is because if you take a mortgage out in Europe now, you get paid interest. You don't pay the interest, they pay you. Warren Buffett is extremely concerned about negative interest rates. He says put your money in a drawer. There's $7 trillion of bonds right now that have negative yields. All right, and you might say, what's that have to do with Eldercare? I'm going to show y'all in just a second. Japan has negative yields right now. It's just all over the news. And 15 years ago, if you had said interest rates would be negative, people would have thought you were absolutely insane. 20 years ago, you could buy a treasury bill that had an 18% yield. And we're talking about negative yields now. German banks offer loans with negative interest rates. Ben Bernanke on his blog has basically been stirring the pot saying, yeah, we're going to have negative interest rates. Well, why is that, important? See, here's the yields you get on government bonds in Europe. They're negative. It's important for a couple of reasons, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland. It's important for a few reasons in that the long-term rate of interest is going down and it's going to stay down for a long time. I actually figured this out. I took the 10-year Treasury bond minus inflation and figured out that we have actually had negative rates for about the past 2 years, depending on how you calculate the CPI. This goes back to 1790. That is a long-term interest rate chart. And what the point of that chart is to show you is that downward interest rate spikes, this was back in the 80s, but downward interest rate trends can last for centuries, and we may be in one of those. And that's a black swan event because, for two reasons that apply to y'all. One, capital is pretty much as cheap as it's ever going to be right now. Well, for the next 10 years, it's going to be super cheap. But the problem is all the savings that seniors have, that our senior citizens have, what are they going to do? Go to the bank and get a CD that pays 0.01%? They can't. It used to be you could count on, you could assume that you would make, with a conservative mix of investments, 5 to 7%. You can't assume that anymore. Seniors are going to need to learn how to live cheaper because they're going to be living longer and their investments are going to be yielding them less money, which is where these technologies come in. I'll go ahead and tell y'all, I hope my mom doesn't watch this, but my mom lived way longer than we thought she was going to live, thank goodness, but she outlived her money, all right? It's a thing. I know lots of friends that's happened to their parents, and it's a situation that's going to get more severe as rates stay lower. All right, by the year 2025, this is another black swan, we're going to be running out of doctors to take care of people. So you're going to have to take more care of yourself. The caregiver support ratio with the boomers, as the boomers get older and older, the people sort of in their family that you would expect to take care of them aren't going to be around for a variety of reasons. They move away, the fertility rate is lower. You're going to have less close people to you taking care of you than you used to have. And here's the way it actually works right now. This is a Venn diagram. And the way things work these days is when you need care, the first person that takes care of you is your spouse, then it's your daughter, then it's your daughter-in-law. Isn't that interesting? But doesn't that sound kind of right? Before your son, your daughter-in-law takes care of you. The caregiver models are kind of changing. And it's interesting because millennials, and I love millennials, but they'll have 250, 500 friends, 9 million friends on Facebook. But how many of them are their real friends who will stand up with them when things go bad? The loved ones that'll step up to the plate and help take care of you. I believe we're going to need to become more self-reliant, and I believe we're going to do that through the tools of ambient intelligence. National Geographic also ran this cover, but I actually believe this cover that babies born today will live to be 120 years old. And I'll explain this in a little while. I think pretty much looking around the room, everyone in here has a good shot of hitting 90 or 100 because medical knowledge is increasing so fast. In Japan, it's increasing so fast that this year they're going to sell more adult diapers than they sell baby diapers. They used to give out awards in Japan. I forget what it was called. That guy's holding one if you reached 100 years old. In 1963, which is roughly the year I was born, there were 153 centenarians. Now 30,000 turn 100 every year. And 2050 in Japan, there'll be 680,000 centenarians. Julia, how do you say that word? So that's my Scrabble partner. Is that a valid Scrabble word? Okay, we'll say it's a valid Scrabble word. This is a friend of my dad's. His name's Curly Watson. He was an OBGYN, worked until he was 103. And I think we're going to be, Chip talked a little bit about that last night. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. He would see actually generations. He delivered babies since the 40s. And entire families would come into his office, great-grandmoms, the grandmoms, the moms, the daughters. They would all come in on the same day and see him. People are going to be living longer and they're going to be working longer. This is, you've probably seen this from Hans Rosling at his TED Talk. Have y'all seen this chart? Y'all seen Hans Rosling's? Anyway, the point is, in 1900 in the United States, we could expect to live to be about 47 years old. If you're down here in China and Africa, you're not really in good shape. But look how much things have changed in 100 years. All right, we've gone from 47 to roughly 78. China, since the year I was born in 1962, I may have this slide, I'm not sure. But in 1962, China, you could expect to live to be 37 years old. That's doubled in my lifetime. All right, people are living longer because they're more prosperous, better medical care, and better food. This is from the UN, and this one kind of cracks me up. This is a chart that goes out to 2300. But if you look at the total population of the world, and its TFR is total fertility rate, and right now, this is kind of where we're hanging right now. But if you look at world population, where they think it's going to be in 2300, all right, it's going to spike at around 2050 because the fertility rate in Africa right now is about 4. The year I was born, the total fertility rate in Iran was 7.2. Now it's 2. In my lifetime, the number of kids Iranians have had has gone from 7.2 to 2. But look, what the UN is estimating is that in the year 2300, we're going to have about 3 billion people on planet Earth just because of the fertility rate lowering. But here's the weird thing. The proportion of the people that are living to be 80 and above in the year 2300, the median estimate is that 45% of the people alive on Earth are going to be 80 and above. All right, and that's the UN. I can't make that stuff up. I live in Augusta, Georgia. We're not that smart over there. All right, if you look, you can see where people are living the longest. This is the line. There are still people. I'll share. I'll come over here this time. In Angola, your life expectancy is still 40. People live longest in Macau and Japan, and there's the United States right there. But we're having a lower fertility rate, and people are living longer. The WHO says that the percentage of people over 60 is going to double to 22%, giving us 2 billion people who are 60 or over. We're a graying world, basically because there's going to be more of people my age and less youngsters, I guess, because people are having so fewer babies. The number of people aged 80 and older will quadruple in the period 2000 to 2050. And this is what's interesting, what's going on. Never before in the history of the world, it's commonplace now to be 60 years old and your parents are still alive. You know, it's a fantastic thing, but that didn't used to happen. All right, but it's happening now. The number of people living to 100, you want me to strike my model pose? I ain't got a model pose. This is all I got. Sorry. I hope you have a filter on there that's like banging. You want me to, hold on. I'm gonna do, give me that one, yeah. All right. Anyway, we could enumerate in 1950 4,000 people that lived to be 100 in America. It looks like we're going to have 834,000 in the year 2050. All right, we are getting older quicker than people think. And for the ladies in the audience, guess what? Deservedly so, you're going to live longer than us fellas. Did you know that all the ladies in the room right now, a year from now, you will have gained 3 months because of increases in medical science. You will have gained 3 months that you don't have right now, 3 months of longevity. So in 10 years from now, you'll have gained 2.5 years of longevity that you don't have right now, but that number will actually probably be higher because it's not moving in a straight line. It's sort of kind of going up exponentially. Don't you love Betty White? I love Betty White. Back to 2001, A Space Odyssey. If you think of where elderly people will live as being the spaceship in 2001 and something looking over them, how is that going to be done? It's going to be done through artificial intelligence, and there's 3 types of AI. There's narrow intelligence, or they call it weak AI, which is mostly what we have right now. It's like that computer that beat that really geeky guy on Jeopardy. Why does Alex Trebek never age? How does he do that? Have you watched that? Something strange going on there. Artificial general intelligence is when computers get basically as smart as humans at everything. We're not there yet. Artificial superintelligence is where we're heading though. Ray Kurzweil, who heads up a big part of Google, says we're going to be there by the year 2040, and he's a very smart man. This is an example of artificial narrow intelligence. The Tesla automobile that self-drives itself. That's weak AI. If for some reason you happen to be on Donny Osmond's Facebook page, y'all on Donny Osmond's Facebook page? If you do go there, not that I did, he's sitting in his Tesla going down the highway. He's driving to work and he's shaving, foam and everything. Now, how many moving parts there are in a Tesla? In a normal car, there's thousands of moving parts. Rumor has it, I've heard that in a Tesla, and somebody Google this and give me the real number, but I've heard there's less than 20 actual moving parts in a Tesla. I know, because of the engine, because the engine is where all the parts are, and in a Tesla it's just a big nothing. Your iPhone, you have all the knowledge of the world, in the world that's ever existed, you pretty much have it on your phone, all right? That's incredibly amazing to me. The spam filter on Google is incredibly amazing to me because its AI actually figures out what I don't want. It's really good at it. Amazon freaks me out because I wasn't even on Amazon looking for books about coyotes. I was just doing Wikipedia about coyotes. I go on Amazon and you can see down at the bottom, it's talking about coyotes. Isn't that weird? It's recommending me books on that when I was on another part of the internet, but that is weak AI. This is another Amazon thing. This is an Amazon patent from a couple of years ago. But anyway, God, that's a bad slide. A method for blah, 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 anticipatory package shipping, yada, 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 which completely specifying the delivery address at the time of shipment. What all that means is Amazon patented a process where they ship it to you before you even order it. They know what you're going to do. That's weak AI, but it's getting stronger. The Airbus A300, is it the A300? 380, the fly-by-wire? That's getting closer. That's almost getting out of the realm of narrow intelligence, but narrow intelligence is where we're going to stay. Flash trading is an example of narrow intelligence, or narrow AI, and it can lead to bad things like the flash crash back in 2010. We live in a jungle of artificial intelligence that's going to one day spawn a higher level of AI. And one of the ways it's going to do that is because you're going to have computer code. You're not going to have coders writing code. I see these commercials now where these guys are like, I went to this school and I learned to code in 8 months and I got a job really super quick. Well, pretty soon code is going to be writing code. And that code's going to be getting smarter and smarter, so those jobs may not be what you had hoped. This is a graph of the increase in computing power, and these are floating point operations per second. And here's where we were in 2000. We were about at 1 million. In 2020, we're going to be at about however many that number is. So we're in an era when computing power is just screaming up and feeding AI. And what feeds, so in other words, the computing power can basically handle the data we throw at it. So what data are we throwing at it? Well, I've got obsessed by this the other day. These Coca-Cola Freestyle machines. Do you know what these evil machines do? Have you all seen them where you can get the big mix of drinks? Well, they phone home every night and talk to each other and are like, hey, what's sold in your neighborhood? And there's an algorithm that they run through, and the drinks can change in these restaurants, in a particular restaurant, day by day, based on patterns they're noticing in your neighborhood. Isn't that weird? It's because they have the data, and that's why you can get all these freaky drinks now that can kill you. Hey, Coca-Cola, that can kill you is because they know the definite, well, I guess you really could get killed with that Mentos and Diet Coke thing. Have y'all seen that? If you haven't, drop a Mentos in a Diet Coke bottle. Enjoy the fun. But from 1750 to 1900, it took 150 years for medical knowledge to double. In 2020, medical knowledge is going to be doubling every 73 days. That's how fast we're shoveling data into AI. So what we have is exponential growth in medical knowledge combined with increased computing power, which is taking the art of medicine as my dad practiced it. My dad was a physician, and has turned it into the science of medicine, which kind of has to happen because we're running out of doctors, 125,000 short. The data is coming in now ever since we went from ICD 9 to 10. There's more and more data being fed into electronic medical records systems in hospitals that we can study. The number of codes, when you go into the hospital, increased. Do we have any nurses in here? The number of codes that you have to code for went from 14,000 to 70,000, and they cover everything. This is an official code. Sucked into jet engine, subsequent encounter. All right? Problems with in-laws. Everybody has that code. Other contact. This one's specific to Arkansas, so y'all don't have to be thinking about that one too much. Another form of all this data that's being dumped into AI is genomic data. And let's take a look at my genomic data. My genomic data says that I'm adopted, and so I wanted to know what I was in for, right? Because I didn't know as I got older what things I need to look for. But as more and more data gets dumped into the algorithms, I did it with 23andMe, gets dumped into 23andMe algorithms, they can learn more about me. They've told me that I'm basically Irish. They told me that I have a higher chance than most. This number's actually changed. My risk for prostate cancer is actually 25% higher than the normal male risk now, and I have a higher risk for colorectal cancer. So these are things I want to know. I mean, would y'all want to know these things? I would want to know. Well, Julia, yes you would. Says the person who drove me my colonoscopy. Yeah, Julia. But anyway, so I knew things to look out for. I know, thankfully, even though I don't drink, I will not probably get type 2 diabetes or psoriasis. It's interesting. This is what Angelina Jolie did. And this is the reason why she had the double mastectomy, and I think she had something else done too. I'm not completely sure. It wasn't just family history. It was what she learned from her DNA. I've learned that when I go into a hospital, please don't give me Coumadin. Coumadin's bad for me. I never would have known that if we hadn't crunched the data and found that out. I never would have known to put this on my Match.com profile that my earwax type is wet. How lucky am I? Just so happened that I found that out, and I can put it on there. And somewhere on there too is my chance of schizophrenia. I'm an AA genotype, which says that I metabolize caffeine pretty quick. But the one I'm really interested in is I have a GG genotype, which means that decreasing energy intake, i.e. eating less calories, and increasing physical exercise or increasing physical activity is not associated with weight loss. Operation Free Pass is in effect. I ain't got to do crud because it's not going to work. Oh, see there. See, I'm not going to have schizophrenia. Going straight on Match.com. Sorry about that, Julia. So anyway, that's the data that's being fed into these things, but we're getting data from a lot of other places. Now, you've heard about the Internet of Things. In my house, I can walk into my house and say, turn on the lights and start my play, generally it's Jackie Gleason. I hate to say that, but start my Jackie Gleason playlist. I like listening to him. And it does all these things automatically. We have sensors everywhere now. It's the Internet of Things. There are some people in Clemson University that when Clemson, they've got those LED light bulbs that'll change colors, right? And everything's hooked up to Wi-Fi, and they know when Clemson plays games. And so when Clemson is playing a game, all the light bulbs in their house will turn orange. Isn't that weird? Isn't that taking it a little too far? But that's what the Internet of Things is. Everything essentially has an IP address. And I think the thing that is really the very important Internet of Things thing is the Disney Magic Bands. How many of y'all have used the Disney Magic Bands? You go into the parks. They unlock your doors. You can buy your food with them. You can find your child with them. When you go into this restaurant, you walk in and they greet you by name, and you find your own seat, and they already know where you are, and they bring the food you've already ordered right to you there because of these. Wouldn't that kind of work well in an assisted living center? If you could get, the key is if you could get people to wear it all the time, all right, which is the key, which they don't do already with the help things that they hang around their necks. I tweeted this the other day, people wearing magic bands, you can be in It's a Small World, and your name will pop up in the ride, all right? So they have all these sensors in Disney World which know where you are all the time because of the RFID chip that's on your magic band, which is relaying information back and forth that is then getting processed about you. It's kind of a neat thing, and pretty soon you're going to be able to call your kids because they're putting a transducer and a microphone on there, and you'll be able to cup your hand like that and buzz your kids inside the park, not anywhere. And it uses your cupped hand as a sound transducer and a little microphone on there. But the magic band, I think is on the leading edge of what's going to happen in the Internet of Things, because it does so many different things and can collect information from so many places. How many of y'all got a Fitbit? Fess up. They're amazing, aren't they? 66 days ago, I tweeted, well, that was a long time ago actually, I tweeted Fitbit could be an interesting wearable payment platform, and 2 weeks ago they said they're going to put payments on your Fitbit. So you'll be able to go to Starbucks with your Fitbit and pay stuff. So we have all these sensors and devices that are collecting information on us all day long, all right? They kind of look great. My big theory, I follow Apple a lot, is that Apple Pay or the Apple Watch was actually built as a health sensor. It just hasn't, they haven't opened up all the possibilities yet because they have to get FDA approval. How many slides in am I in, Chris? 116. Yeah, 220 slides, y'all. This is something, this is a sensor that you can wear all the time, and it relays a bunch of health data, and you wear it on your back. That's fairly easy to put on. All these things work by inference. They take all this information. Metcalfe's law says the value of the network gets exponentially better. It's actually the square of the number of new people joining the network. Google, when people Google flu symptoms, the term flu symptoms, you can take that information, data mine it, and find out where there's flu outbreaks just by data mining searches. Why is Facebook worth $155 billion? It's actually worth more than that now. All right, it's because of the data it collects. How many of y'all pay to be on Facebook? Right, you don't. What are you getting that service for? Your data. 90 million people saw this ridiculous Chewbacca. Did y'all see this thing? Yeah. 90 million people saw it, but only Facebook got paid. Someday that compensation model, it already has changed on YouTube, is going to change, and people's data is not going to be provided for free. I believe that down the road, there's a chance that seniors are going to have a chance to have income by donating the data that they're generating all the time for studies. All right, that's one way to get people to help to participate, not only to track them, but to pay them for their data. There's a huge argument going on now with electronic medical records as to who owns that data. But it's all going to ultimately be stored on the blockchain. Do y'all know what the blockchain is? Yeah, it's the spreadsheet that underlies the technology of Bitcoin. And I believe electronic healthcare records are going to be stored there. Real estate title is going to be stored there. And you'll be paid in Bitcoin or Ether. How many of y'all have heard of Ether? Yeah, Ether's pretty much, I'd be buying me some Ether right now. Ether's pretty much going to replace, I believe, Bitcoin, which takes us to ambient intelligence. All right, ambient intelligence is where the computing environments, everywhere we go, there's sensors, and they support the people that are around them. I hate it when people use the word paradigm, but ambient intelligence takes AI and it takes the sensors and it combines it and it adapts to this. It takes information that people have and gives it context like Hal did in 2001: A Space Odyssey when he took care of people. It takes the data. We're all going to be generating data. We're all going to be in different places that have sensors everywhere, on our bodies, on floor tiles. everywhere around us. This is a list of other places that are going to have sensors, and it combines it and gives it context. That's the important thing. It makes sense and gives things context. Here's how it works. It looks at an activity, it recognizes it, it finds a pattern, it looks for anomalies, and then it makes a decision on what to do. Ambient intelligence is context aware, it's personalized, it adapts to your behavior, is transparent, and it's going to be everywhere. All right, now privacy freaks may not like that, but it's going to happen. Pretty much everything you're going to do, everything you do is going to have some computer somewhere inferring your behavior behind it. If you're talking about, for instance, an assisted living center, that's a room in an assisted living center. A camera up in the room, I think it's up in the corner, you can't hardly see it, identifies her as a living human being, all right? There's the sensor as a human being, and it can be a camera. For the most part, it could even be a Microsoft Kinect. I'm going to show you all that. And they're throughout the whole house. And so as she moves throughout her house, the sensors follow her and they learn her behavior, where she is at certain times of day, how long she stays there. You know, if she slept too long in the bed, that might be a problem according to her past behavior. It looks at all these factors, where she goes, sleep, where she goes bed to toilet, when she eats, when she cooks, when she works, leave home, enter home. It takes all of these things and it infers a pattern for her, and that's kind of hard to look at, but that's somebody's life on a graph right there. There's a talk about falls in a couple of hours. And this is a big deal. A friend of my mom's best friend is 100 years old, and she fell last week in an assisted living center, and nobody got to her for 7 hours, all right? That's a problem. Well, you can use something as simple as a Microsoft Kinect, which can identify, well, it calls people blobs. I don't know how I feel about that, but the Kinect refers to people as blobs and can tell when the person has fallen, and the Kinect is only $99. We're not talking about hugely expensive equipment here. We're going to be talking to things. This is where I really think the growth is going to be. You have to wear the Magic Band. You don't have to wear something that listens to you all the time, which is what the Amazon Echo does. This is something I'm actually writing right now because of what happened to my mom's friends. I'm afraid to go over on this side of the stage anymore. But look, these are my assistant's intent. So I'm writing some things that you can say to the Echo, which will generate responses, but somebody can say, I don't feel well, and maybe it'll call your daughter. Or you can say, call my daughter, or you can say, I've fallen down. It's always listening for those phrases. You don't have to wear anything. It's just always on around you, listening for these phrases, and that's how it works. And you can ask your own, how's my mom doing? And it'll look at her Fitbit and tell you how she's doing. All right, her Fitbit will connect to a network, and you can say, what's my mom's pulse? And it'll answer you back at home somewhere. There it is. Amazon's Alexa can shout your Fitbit stats at you now. So basically, ambient intelligence or sensors put everywhere, even under your bed. There's a hydraulic bed sensor that you can put, see that right there? That you can put under a person's bed, and it listens. It uses transducers to listen to your movement during the night. It infers your pulse during different parts of the night and how you're sleeping. And should your pulse go down to 30, someone is informed, all right? And it's under your bed, it's invisible. I think the more invisible we can make these things, and that's just a graph showing its accuracy, the more invisible we can make ambient intelligence, the higher it's going to be adopted by people. But I think in assisted living centers and people living at home, this is how people are going to be able to do it longer, by using technology that is not that expensive. This is facial recognition technology. Hal read these guys' lips in 2001 using that, and Hal checked for anomalies and what they were saying. But facial recognition technology can also watch your habits, as I've shown you before, how much you're walking, you know, if you're sitting down too long, maybe if you're smoking, and in your mirror it'll show you what you'll look like in 20 years if you keep up those bad habits. So it gamifies things. Gamification is actually pretty important in this. All right, last night, somebody said you can't hug a robot. Who said that? You tell me you can't hug that? I can hug that. Robot companions are going to be very important, And I basically propose that it's going to be a Roomba mashed up with a Furby somehow or another. That's just going to, I'm not even kidding. It's going to follow you around, ask if you're okay, ask did you take your medicine, but be very non-intrusive, and then go back and charge itself when it needs to. And that helps alleviate a lot of loneliness of older folks. All right, I'm going to skip through this because I'm a little bit over. But for Alzheimer's patients, you can also model their behavior based on, hold on, right here, everyday tasks like cooking. And there's a formula you can use to calculate. You don't want the denominator to grow, the failures in tasks like cooking. And if the denominator grows, it can be an indicator of onset of Alzheimer's. And in Alzheimer's wings, they use these type of ambient intelligence devices. Actually lowers the number of nurses they need, and you can prevent people from walking to places they're not supposed to go. For most other people, it can also make them just feel safer, provide companionship and make them feel safer. Boring slide, boring slide. Older Americans are quick adopters of technology. My mom and all her friends are. USAA found this to be true. I just wanted to show you this because I found this last night. It's super cool for Parkinson's people. All right, this has a flywheel on it, right? It's a glove you wear. If you have Parkinson's, you can have steady hands. Is that amazing? That's super cool, and it's not very expensive at all. That's what I'm saying. It's cheap tech that is going to enable all these things to happen. None of these things are huge, hugely expensive stuff. So, focus of my talk, as I said in the beginning, is combining the way from artificial intelligence is taking wearables and sensibles data and inventing sort of a new science called ambient intelligence that will lead to innovations on this curve right there that we wouldn't have thought possible. And like I said, I think we're right there, but we're going to go up to there like super quickly. And the richest person in the world has the same iPhone as you have today. I think technology is also democratizing eldercare. I think everybody is going to have an affordable way to be looked after. This is my last slide. This is, Julia, who's this? Thank you very much. You're so smart. He lived to be very old, and when he was 93, he was still practicing the cello every day. He was the 20th century's greatest cellist, and they asked him why he did that, and he said, "Why do you practice every day for 4 hours?" He said, "I'm beginning to notice some improvement." And we should be so lucky that we're here when we're 93, engaged and interested in things. And I think it's technologies like ambient intelligence that are going to help us allow us to be like Pablo. Thank you very much for your time and attention.